Welkom bij de Voormens podcast. Ik ben Dylan Hermans, founder van Voormens. En in deze podcast ontdek je alles wat jou helpt om fysiek en mentaal sterker in het leven te staan. We praten over voeding, training en mindset, maar ook over zelfontwikkeling, verbinding en maatschappelijke thema's die ons allemaal raken. Geen filter, maar real talk. Echte mensen met echte verhalen. Dit is jouw plek voor groei, kracht en verbinding. Dit is de Voormens podcast. Nice, Stephane. Welcome to the Voormens podcast. Thank you for the time and effort to visit us.
Thank you, Dylan. I'm happy to be here.
Like I said before this episode, I think I did 4 courses at Kilo, Strength Society. But for the people who don't know you, Stephane, and don't know what your company is all about, can you please introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so my name is Stephane Cazeault. I've been in the industry now for 26 years. Like many coaches, I started in a commercial gym when I was still at university studying exercise science. And then after university, once I graduated, I started doing continuing education. So we're talking about the year 2000. At the time, there was not a lot. Like I did Ian King, Charlie Francis, John Berardi, Eric Serrano, and Charles Poliquin.
Yes.
And being from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, French Canadian, like I kind of connected with Charles Poliquin.
I understand.
Being from the same area, we went to the same university, so I was very intrigued. So I started doing courses with Charles, and I got really passionate about the program design and periodization aspect of strength training. And then eventually in 2005, I was hired in a performance center in St. Louis, Missouri. So I moved to the United States, started working at that center. And what was really good at the time is it was one of the first places where under one roof, we had strength coaches, we had chiropractors, we had nurses, so we gave IVs, and
Nice.
there was a bunch of stuff. So like the professional athletes, they would come in, for example, they would show up before the lower body sessions. Let's say they had tight hip flexors. They would go upstairs, get some ART treatments on their hip flexors. They would come down to the gym, would do the lower body session. After the session, they would go back up, do some acupuncture, do some IV therapy. So it was kind of like this cool one-stop shop for athletes.
Yeah.
And then it evolved from there. In 2010, 11, and 12, I was hired as a high-performance consultant for the St. Louis Cardinals in baseball.
Okay.
So I got a lot of experience from this, like working in the insides of professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2012, I was hired by Charles Poliquin to go work for his education company in Rhode Island.
I didn't even
And
know
then in
that.
2016,
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So like from 2012 to 2016, I was working for Poliquin Group. I was the head strength coach. I was the head of the education.
Okay.
So that was a really cool experience. Like we had a great team. We had Andre Benoit, who's worked with Charles since the mid 80s. He was an athlete of Charles initially. Derek Woodsky was there, Ryan Fainley was there, Luke Lehman was there, Jess Banda, Alexandra Bernardin. So it was a really cool group. And then in 2016, I decided to move from Rhode Island, where Poliquin Group was, to California to start Kilo. And what's interesting is at first, in 2016, all I wanted was to have a group training gym where I would put the clients through my system. So what you've learned from Kilo, that's what the group training was all about.
Okay.
But what was interesting is, as we were building our clientele in California, I started having a request for education. People were like, "Hey, Steph, like, are you going to do courses and stuff like that?" So I'm like, you know what, why not? So I started doing education in December 2016 was our first course under Kilo, and then it evolved. And then by 2021, when it was time to renew the lease for the gym in California, the education had grew so much that now we decided, you know what, we might as well put all of our efforts in the education. So we moved from California to Florida, and we got our facility, but the facility here is strictly for for education purposes. So
Okay.
we don't
Mhm.
really have a open gym for clients.
Okay.
And being in Florida, we're close because most of our clients are East Coast US, East Coast Canada, and Europe. So Florida was a little closer.
I
And
understand.
then it kept evolving. And now in 2026, we'll be moving to mostly online education. We'll still be doing live courses, but it will be more like on demand.
Yeah.
And so we'll just travel for courses because the reality is what we've realized since COVID, the attendance in live education keeps dropping every year.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's more and more demand for online. So we're like, well, you know what? We might as well get down with the times and just produce more online content.
Yeah. I think for the future in this industry that online you have to be a little bit online. But like a
Yeah.
few weeks ago, you were in Belgium, I think, or in the Netherlands.
No, yeah, I was in Antwerp,
In Antwerp,
Belgium,
yeah. Yeah.
early August. Yeah, it's because like what's super interesting is we had one guy from Belgium come to California to do a live mentorship with me in 2018.
Yes, Martijn Schouwbroek.
And yes,
Yeah, he was on the
and
podcast like a couple of weeks ago. So
uh, nice, great guy. But
yes.
him, I'm super grateful for him because then when he went back, he basically told a lot of people in his surroundings about Kilo, and then all of a sudden we started to have a surge of Belgian students that came. So last year in 2024 in August we went to Amsterdam, and we had 49 people in the
Wow.
class. And when
Damn.
I asked the class, "Hey, where are you guys from?" Like more than half the class was from Belgium. So I'm like, "Hey,
So you
next
had to
year,
come to
next
Belgium.
year, yeah." So that's what we did. That's why we went to
Okay,
Antwerp, and
nice, nice.
the majority of our Belgian followers are
Hmm.
Flemish anyway. So
Hmm.
Antwerp just made sense for us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is a nice thing. Okay, very nice. And for you, because you are already like 20, 25, 30 years in the industry, what do you see not only with the coaches, but also with clientele? What has changed the most in that time span?
Well, so I mean, for us, we're it's a little different because I have a few professional athletes that I train online, but outside of this, the majority, like 99% of my clientele are all personal trainers and
Yes,
coaches.
of course.
So we're very lucky in the sense that we have this very niche clientele. So to me, I cannot say that my clientele has changed much. So it's
Okay.
still, we tend to cater to the 25 to 40-year-old coach bracket, and that's pretty much all the clients we have, like
Okay.
most of the time.
Hmm.
And I'm also fortunate because I have, I think, six clients that I've trained for over 10 years now online. So it's really cool to have this like long duration approach, which really allowed me to push the long-term periodization models
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
working on for such a long time.
I think
So it's really interesting.
I think the most coaches are periodizing like for a couple of weeks, couple of months, maybe a year, maybe max 2 year. But if you're like programming like 5 years, 10 years, then you know you're doing a good job. So that's
Yeah,
a
no,
good thing.
it's true. Like when people stay for that long, it's a testament that they're enjoying the process, you know?
Yes, and that they keep making progress because a lot of people ask me
Yeah.
like, yeah, if you get personal training one-on-one or online coaching after 6 months or 12 months you are learning out. I'm like, I'm still learning and I'm like 10, 15 years in the industry and myself I'm keep learning every day new tactics, methods, training periodizations and everything. So you can keep growing, keep making progress, but you have to put time and effort in it. And that's what I see from what can you see from your perspective, like the coaches like 10, 15, 20 years ago and now, is there a change not of clientele but in mindset, in approach or something you feel difference?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. Yeah, like the one thing I notice is now the the younger coaches that we have, so like the coaches that come in now that are like 25 years old, they what's interesting is there's so much more information available now
That's true.
that they, intellectually speaking, like they know a lot of things. Like they have a very broad knowledge of a bunch of stuff. But what I do notice is because a lot of the industry has shifted online and there's so much information out there, what I am noticing is the younger coach has less practical experience,
Yes,
a
exactly.
lot of theoretical knowledge,
Yes.
but there's a little bit of that lack of transfer of theoretical knowledge into practice. Because if you haven't, like, for example, I've spent 35,000 hours training clients one-on-one in my career. So that's a lot of time to see
Yes.
different types of bodies,
Exactly.
to see people, to see people move differently. So it gives you tools on how to cue people and how to correct people. And now, okay, I see you move this way. So you know what? We should regress to this variation of squat because this squat will be more efficient. So I think that the practical component with the younger coach now, I think is lagging compared to the coaches I saw like 15, 20 years ago. Simply because it's not as much in their face, because
True.
you don't need to be hired in a gym now to become a personal trainer. You can become a personal trainer online by
Yeah,
having a good social media presence, having
true.
good technical knowledge, because that's the thing too that's sometimes misleading, right? Now you're talking to me like I didn't. It's not like you sent me the questions pre. I don't even
No,
know what
no.
you're going to ask me
That's
next.
why I love it.
So
That's why that's the
yeah,
good thing.
so I need to have all of the information in my head to be able to answer you. But when you're making a post on social media,
Yeah,
you might
ChatGPT,
look very
everything.
smart. Yeah, it's like you might have the book next to you while you're writing your post. So it's not, it's just not the same thing.
And that's where you come with the practical experience and knowledge to provide. You have knowledge, but you need to apply it, and then you have applied knowledge, and that's where the key is. It's like Martijn also, he is very educated. He's from 92 like me, he's 33 years old, but the knowledge that he has on the training part of this industry, it's like I can learn still a lot from him too, because he is further in this aspect, and even his colleague I think is even more so. I see it. I give myself I give an education in the Flemish part of Belgium, 6 months education
Yeah,
for a health coach, but we only see like one strength day with the theory session and a practical session, and then one for functional training, also theory practice. But if people want to build further on that knowledge, you can be adherent at accumulation phases, identification phases, and that's good. But for further knowledge, for further practice, you need to have online courses, but you also need, for a good personal trainer, online coach, you need just experience on the floor. That's important, because if you don't have it,
yeah,
you can help people, but you will feel a certain stop, you will feel that you don't get the results you want with the client because you lack, because a lot of trainers, and nowadays like 2025, 2026, lack a lot of experience and knowledge on the floor experience, and that's what I feel
yeah,
too. A lot of people look good, they train good by themselves, but if you have a person who hasn't touched a dumbbell in his life, good luck with that. And that you need that
yeah.
to really change someone's life, and to have also progress on short and long term results and goals that you want to have with the client.
Yeah, and another thing that I find interesting, Dylan, too, that I've noticed is because there's so much information out there, and now research is so prevalent on social media still, is sometimes you'll see a young coach learning a new theory or a new system, and that theory or system seems very enticing to that specific coach. And now all of a sudden that coach adopts that system and now talks about that system as if he's been using that systems for years. But in reality, he doesn't even know if the system works or not because he hasn't applied it for years. And I see that happening all the time. The only reason why I'm so confident in what I'm doing and what we're teaching at Kilo is because I applied it over and over and over to hundreds and hundreds of customers that had results. So I can say in certainty, if you're following this, you will have results, because it's not just a theory that I'm now teaching you guys. You know what I mean?
Exactly, and that's why I find Kilo like it's a specific education program that you won't find anywhere else, because it's if you want to be more into the training part of this industry, you have to do extra formations, because on the Belgian level there are good coaches, huh? Like Martijn and his colleagues, there are good coaches, but the most of the coaches, they have like 1 or 2 courses done and they begin to work as a personal trainer. Nothing wrong with that, because they help people, but on a certain level they don't have enough knowledge to help people further than what they first can believe, and that's where they lack like education, and that's what I see also in the Belgian part. So that's why wanted to have you on the podcast to provide a little bit more information about that. But if we look, what was the original vision behind creating like Kilo Strength Society for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, well, like I said, it changed, right? Because at first we wanted to be a group training facility that would grow and we could scale and have multiple locations and on and on and on. But my true passion has always been periodization and program design, and especially the long-term components of it. Because the thing that I've noticed is, listen, like I'm glad I have a bachelor's degree. I think it was great for me because you learn a lot of basics on anatomy, biomechanics, physiology. It's great. But on the application of training, there's not much you actually truly learn in your university degree. So once I started doing continuing education myself after my bachelor's degree, then I started understanding training a little bit more. But the problem that I noticed at the time is no one was actually teaching long-term planning. It was always like, hey, you want to lose fat, here's what you do. You want to gain muscle, here's what you do. But I'm like, okay, but then what?
Then what?
Then
Yeah,
what? And then
then
what?
what?
And
That's
then
the
what?
question.
So yeah, so that's when I started like thinking, and I'm like, you know what? The coaches that are actually thinking long term are Olympic coaches, because with Olympic sports, you train for 4 years to peak
Yes.
for that one event.
Yes.
So the whole thought process is very long term,
Okay.
right? So I'm like, okay. So then I started studying way more like the application of programming and planning for Olympic sports. But now the problem is I'm not training Olympic athletes. So now I needed to deconstruct, if you want, what coaches are doing with Olympic athletes and try to use concept, but apply them to the general population or the professional athlete that has a very short off season and a very long competitive season, which is
Yes.
completely different. So that's what kind of triggered my whole vision, if you want,
Okay.
with the whole kilo system that you know. Because me, I was like, I'm tired of just programming one program at a time with no vision of where I'm going. That's not how I see training. Nobody is going to reach the highest peak if you're only programming one phase per phase per
Yeah,
phase per
I
phase with
understand.
no
Okay.
true plan.
Okay.
So that was my main mission, if you want, my mission statement with
I understand.
Kilo Strength Society in terms of
Yes.
education, to get coaches to understand that true changes happens in the long-term development.
What's the shortest periodization of period for a periodization for you? Imagine I want to be your client. I want to train under you. You're my coach. What's the least amount of time that you're programming for me to become bigger and stronger? Imagine.
Yeah, the minimum time frame for me is 12 weeks. Like
Okay, like 3 months.
if you
Okay, that's
don't,
the minimum.
yeah, that's the minimum for me, because it, to really start creating changes on the cellular level, it takes time. So like just like 1 month is just not, it's not
No.
enough to truly affect anything. So at least 3 months, it's long enough that you're seeing a significant change in whichever endeavor you're training for, but it's not so long that you're starting to lose traction with your client and the
Mhm.
client's starting to get bored. And so to me, to have like 12 weeks 12-week macro cycles that progresses in a logical manner over time is the way to go. And by the way, just for your listeners that are more avid of long-term periodization, I just want to make sure that they understand that in sports training, the macro cycles are typically a year or 6 months, right?
Yeah,
It's
that's yeah.
the training period that leads to a competitive event. But like I said previously, my goal is I'm not training Olympic athletes, I'm training the general population. So now, if you really look at the definition of a macro cycle, it's a training period that prepares you to reach a peak for a given entity. So now I'm using the same concept, but I'm restricting the period to 12 weeks
Yes.
instead of 1 year. So it's more manageable. It makes things a little bit more interesting for the general population.
Yeah, sure. And I think also if you coach a client for a half a year or a year, you already have like 2 or 4 different periodizations ready for him or her to coach. And that's the long-term vision you have to have if you want to build results, but also keep it and build further on that results.
Yeah.
Because I have a
But
lot of people.
but Dylan,
Tell me, tell
I'm
me.
sorry.
No, tell me,
Okay,
tell me.
but just as an example, so if you have a client that comes to you and you decide as a coach to only listen to the needs and demands of your client, but the client does not necessarily have a understanding of the training process.
Exactly.
And then he's like, hey, Steph, I want to get really, really, really lean. And then you put your client through a extreme fat loss phase where the volume is really high. It's very metabolic in nature. There's lots of metabolic disturbance, high energy expenditure, and on, and he loses the fat. But then all of a sudden, after the fat loss period, he's like, hey, you know what? I want to start martial arts, so now I want to work on power. Well, now the problem now is we've spent 12 weeks doing metabolic work. You've
Exactly.
lost strength invariably. You've lost power, and now we need to develop power, but develop power out of a suboptimal strength because we've just spent 12 weeks doing metabolic work. So it doesn't work. It won't work. So this is a good example of misunderstanding of long-term planning and how it can negatively affect changes if you don't plan accordingly.
Yeah, that's why we try to plan with the client like a goal on short term, and short term for us is like minimum 6 to 12 months for the first short term goal. Is it losing 10 kgs or is it losing like 25 pounds or sleeping better, having more energy? We don't care. We want just to provide like 6 months a year is short term, not like 10 weeks or
Yeah.
something, because they need to know, even if they are 20 years old or 50 or everything in between, that short term, a half year or a year is not that much to build or progress to some goal. And that we want to provide too, because I think there are a lot of people with misconceptions about training. From your perspective, what are, not only for Genpop, but also for coaches, but what are the most misconceptions you see with people regarding to strength training?
Well, I mean, to me, still to this day, I think the biggest misconception, and it mostly comes from the female counterpart, is that you can gain muscle mass so easily. You know, like people think that, oh, if I train hard and a lot, I'll be too big too quick. No, trust me.
You wish, you wish.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it's interesting, but it's still such a big dogma
Still,
in
yeah,
the
okay.
industry.
Okay.
Still, at least in North America. So
Mhm.
it's something that you constantly need to educate people for. And what I always tell them, like, listen, let's say that you're an outlier and you put on a ton of muscle real quick. The one thing I can guarantee you is your arms won't go from like 20 centimeters circumference to 30 in one shot. It's going to
Never
go from 20 to 20.5 to 21. So if one day you're like, hey, I'm too big, okay, we're going to chill, we're going to relax. But
I never heard somebody
don't
say
worry.
that, but
No, but it's to take the fear
yeah,
away out of their mind
yeah,
because they think like I'm gonna start lifting weights and in a month I'll look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. They think that. So
yeah.
it's
If
just
that it
that
what
that to me is.
if that was the case, that would be great. But unfortunately, after 15 years, I'm still not looking like Arnold, and I'm doing my best. So, but I heard from a lot of female clients who start, they already have like a good base, and they're saying like, but not too much strength because I don't want to look like a bodybuilder. And I'm like, you're never going to look like a bodybuilder, even if you put on like some pills and some steroids, never gonna happen. So that's why it's important to have a clear vision for them also to make clear that they can progress a lot of that they can make a lot of results, but it's so difficult to put on quality muscle mass, and you need to have the time. If you're a female or a male, you need to give yourself the time and patience, and that's not easy for most people.
No, I agree. But I will say though that I've noticed that the younger generation, the females, I find that they more and more they want to look athletic. They want to have some muscle. So
Yes.
I did see I do see a change to
Okay.
that effect.
Okay.
So, with the
Yeah.
35-year-old or less, I think so. That's positive.
Yeah, I find that
Definitely.
very positive. If you look at High Rocks right now, it's like crazy how
Yeah.
that's rising. Like CrossFit, if you see the female athletes, I'm like, they're like, they're like buffed. Like I'm like, wow. And that's what we want to see because in the industry, sometimes they pick a people with overweight and say that that's healthy. For me, that's not healthy. I'm from the perspective that everybody has to be themselves. But if you see like a high rocks athlete, bodybuilding athlete, strength athlete, that's health. That's health. They're building their body with nutrition, supplements, sleep, training, and that's what you need to have like a complete healthy body. And they can bring that up. But it's interesting to hear that you also see that the last like decade maybe that a lot of women get
Yeah.
more muscular and want to be more muscular. I also see in Europe, like in Belgium, more females will enter the gym than 5 or 10 years ago, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
so they're also building like their bodies. They're also like bodybuilding because if a lot of people hear bodybuilding, they think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it's like far more than that. So, but that's a good thing, right? Um,
Yeah. Because like 25 years ago, like female was mostly like group fitness,
yeah,
you
like
know,
Zumba or something.
classes. Yeah, and things like this. So now it's really cool to see more and more just in the weight room, squatting, overhead pressing, doing chin-ups. To me, it's really, really
That's
nice.
nice. Also, to longevity and everything, I'm very positive on strength training. Even if there are people like I don't like to do strength training, you always can make strength training like a little bit more fun, a little bit more difficult to find some fun in it. Huh? If you look at
Yeah.
like the balance between science, experience, and intuition, how do you see it on the strength training base between so science, experience, and intuition? How do you play with that for Gen Pop?
Hmm. That's interesting. I've never really thought about it this way, but I will say that with Gen Pop, I will go experience first,
Yeah. Okay.
intuition second, and science third.
Okay.
And
Nice.
I'm not putting science third because I don't think that it's not important. I just think that because I've been in this industry for so long, my scientific background is strong enough that I understand that point, but I think it's more important to use my intuition of how I think the client will respond to the
Yes.
process
Yes.
based off of my experience. And then finally, I'll use the science to fine tune. But to me, you can have the latest scientific information that you want. If the application of that information turns off the client, then it's worthless science for what I'm trying to do. So that's where the intuition part is kind of important. But you can only have real intuition if you have enough experience.
And if you have enough time to test some things, what's going good and not good, because we also operate under the quote like there is no one size fits all. There are no two exact persons with two exact training programs because you can implement every theory and every science, but if it doesn't work on the person, like you say, that then it doesn't help. Then it's like time thrown away.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then like the clients, like I'll give you another example. So there, in the last 6, 7 years, there's this trend, especially in the bodybuilding sphere of training, where now um, a lot more people are being way more targeted with exercise selection. They're going to target very specific muscle bellies and angles using multiple exercises for each and every group, and that's fine. That's great, and I understand the logic behind it. I understand the scientific application. I understand the recruitment and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's great for that clientele who strives to fine tune their physique for bodybuilding purposes. But me, if you were to tell me, okay, now Steph, for your own training for the rest of your life, this is the only way you can train because this is the only way you can progress. And your squat and deadlift and chin up and bench press, throw this out of the window. We don't care. Well, no, screw
No.
this. I'm not training
Yeah, yeah,
because to me, I would be bored within 2 weeks.
I
But
understand.
but some people love it. Some people they thrive on it. They love it. So great, great. So that's why it's cool. I think it's very important to have multiple tools in your
Sure.
toolbox to be able to use a bunch of stuff depending on who you're training.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
how they react, yeah. Because many coaches also chase like complexity. I think, how do you see it, like teaching simplicity without losing like sophistication to make it too difficult? Because I see a lot of UK coaches that are finding exercise and like they look like an IFB pro, so you can discuss that they look good, that they train hard and good, but I try to keep it like simple as possible to make a progress. But how do you provide like simplicity without losing sophistication on strength training base?
But okay, but I have a question for you. So these guys that you see that are doing these complex movements that are really muscular, that are super jacked, my question is, did they were they doing this training to get super jack in the first place?
Probably not. That's why I asked the question. Probably they will stick to keep it stupid simple, like the basics, like a deadlift, like a squat, like a chin up, like a push, like a bench press. Like that's the base. You have to start with the base, and then you can infiltrate like different stuff.
Exactly,
But
exactly. So if they've built a solid base, a solid foundation of mass, and now they're doing these because it's less stress on their joints, and they can fine tune and refine their physique, great. But that's not my problem. My problem to see like a IFBB pro bodybuilder train that way, I have no problem with this. But to see a 65 kilo 18-year-old kid doing this instead of focusing on the basic, I think, in my opinion, that it's misleading,
true.
you know?
I'm also a
So
fan.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
I'm also a fan of keeping compounds as long as possible. I'm now 33 years old. I'm not 18 anymore, but still I integrate my compounds because I know if I do like 2 or 3 months no squats, never going to happen. But imagine like deadlifts, overhead pressures, bench pressures. If I let that away and I integrate, it just doesn't feel like the same. You need that base movement for the body through progressive overloaded with weight to progress for strength, for muscle endurance, for muscle, how do you say it in English? Like quality. You need the
Yeah.
basics. You need the basics. And it isn't for Gen Pop, sometimes they say, oh, again, a variation of squats or variation of deadlifts because they want to have like different exercises, but they need to understand that the basics is very important for me, for my perspective.
No, I completely agree, and I'll add another layer to this, but on the coach's perspective. So if so, I'm a coach, and that's my thing, and I've been a coach for a long time. And the reason why I think that I'm successful as a coach is my entire career I've been obsessed at gathering data and analyzing data and using data to fine tune my training process. But if all of a sudden I start training people using a bunch of complex exercises that are really weird angles and that are using cable systems, and I'm training people online on top of it, and my clients in one gym, they're using a cable that has a 2 pulley system, and the other client is using a cable with a 4 pulley system. So now all the weights and the load that I'm gathering, the information I'm gathering doesn't mean anything. I cannot compare it to nothing. But at least to me, the simplicity and the basics of the barbell lifts, like the squat deadlift, now I can compare apples to apples to apples to apples within the same client over time and across different clients. I have a very true reading of what's going on in terms of strength development. But when it's too complex and futile and cable dominant, it's untrackable.
That's true. For people who are listening, who are clients, because we have a lot of clients and people who are of a general interest in health and training and everything, from your perspective, Stefan, if you have a client that says, okay, I understand your vision, but I want some variety in my training, I want to do different stuff, what do you say to a client like that?
Oh, fine. You can add variety, so I'll still throw in the basics. Then you'll add variety. You'll add fun stuff for them, but as long as it's not creating an interference in the long-term process, which is kind of easy to do. Like you can easily like work around it and
Sure.
add some fluff to make it more interesting without it negatively affecting everything, you know? So
Yeah, sure.
I'm fine. I'm fine with that. But at the same time, I also make sure that I do a good job with the client in the early days to have them understand that the training process is a boring thing in
Exactly.
itself.
Yep.
That's what training is. Like learning a new language, you need to practice that language the same way every day, all the time. And then you learn the language. So you can't tell me that you want to progress in the weight room and then at the same time ask me to give you a different workout every time. And the one thing that I always tell people that blows me away that I still don't understand to this day is the same clients who are going to tell you that they want more exercise variations because they are bored with your training that's done 2 or 3 times a week. They're the same clients that are training for a half marathon that are running 5 times a week. So you have no problem doing the same shit 5 times a week for an hour,
Exactly.
but 2 or 3 strength training sessions where you're squatting once a week, no, that's too boring. To me, there's a
Yeah.
disconnect here. So it's to make them understand that training is training and you need repetition because these movements are skills first and foremost. And until you have the skill, it's really, really hard to truly develop the strength and the hypertrophy because you're not recruiting enough motor unit. So you need to be able to develop the skills with intermuscular coordination in the early stages to reap the benefits of these movements.
Yes, and that takes time. So I'm glad that
Takes
you're
time.
telling it for you from your perspective because that's a lot, worth a lot. I have still two questions if you're okay with that. My
Yeah,
before last question is for yourself, what habits or routines do you have to keep yourself mentally and physically sharp and strong for yourself as a man, as an athlete, as a coach, as a partner, as a father, I don't know, but for yourself as a person.
I mean, to me, like everything starts with training. So I always make sure that I prioritize training. I mean, I'm human like everybody else. I'll have some periods where the training is not going well. I'm stressed. I'm busy. I have work. I have vacation. It happens. But the majority of the time, I try to make sure that I have my 4 strength training sessions per week because to me, if I have the strength training, then everything else falls into place. My nutrition will be easier to comply with. My sleep, my lifestyle will be easier to comply with. So it's like for me, I need the training as the trigger to improve everything else. But if I'm not training, I'm not saying that I cannot eat well, but my motivation for it won't be as great as if I have my 4 strength training sessions. Then I also, like the last 4 years, I've been doing a lot of cardio as well,
Okay.
just on a health perspective, just to
Sure.
help with, cardiovascular issues and stuff like that. So that's also a big part of what I do, and I use those cardio sessions for like personal education. Like that's where I listen to podcasts on business and stuff like that. So it's almost, to me, that the cardio, it's a downtime where I can relax, be more. It's funny because I'm still doing something, I'm still
Yeah,
training, but
sure.
it's almost more of a parasympathetic
Yeah,
activity
sure.
to me
I
at that
understand.
point in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So yeah, but nutrition is a big part, though, honestly. So yeah, the training is the trigger, but then the nutrition is what gets everything rolling. Because I'm sure you've seen it yourself.
Sure.
You can train your ass off, but if your training is shit, like, you won't change. You won't really
Nope.
improve.
No, really. And for me, because I was a bodybuilding athlete too, I did like 5 competitions, the discipline and the hardness you get out of training, the rest in your life gets easier. So and the nutrition part, of course. So that's what I like the most about this sport and this industry. The
Yeah.
last question, Stefan, for you, for one, for coaches, and two, for Gen Pop. What do you want to say from your perspective for inspiring one coaches and one Gen Pop? Is there something you want to say from your perspective on the other side for coaches and for Gen Pop in your behalf?
So for coaches, first and foremost, I would urge every coach that's serious to become the best coach they can be to go out there, get in the gym, train people. You have to train people. I'm telling you, it's going to make you a much better online coach if online coaching is what you want to be and it's what you want to become. Trust me, it makes such a big difference because you'll be better equipped at fine-tuning and refining exercise selection. And then second, learn, study, get information, but please get it from textbook, true scientific literature. Don't get it from social media posts, or get it from coaches with experience. Like
Yes.
that's fine too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what I mean is, like, me, for example, like the book Science and Practice of Strength Training by Vladimir Zatsiorsky. It's one of my classics. I've read the book over 30 times in my lifetime. It's a classic. It's a little older, I get it, but
Doesn't matter.
the majority of the information, it's still up to date. It's
Yes,
still
exactly.
it's still very true. So to me, there's like some pivotal books like Super Training. It's a hardcore book to read, but if you're serious and you really want to understand the depth of strength and conditioning, to dive into these books instead of disconnected snippets of articles and Instagram posts where you never have the real context of things. I think it's a disservice, and I think it just confuses the
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, for the Gen Pop, I would
Shut up and
say that,
train.
honestly, yeah, I mean, shut up and train, but don't start with, like, dream big, but set your goals. Like, start with small goals.
Yes.
Like, have a small goal, reach it. Now move on to the next goal, reach it. Next goal, reach it. Dream big, but small goals. And I think if you do this, it's going to get the Gen Pop client motivated. It's going to get them in tune with the process and keep educating them. Like, one of my favorite things that I do as a coach is to get someone who comes to me because they need to lift for health purposes, but then a year later they're lifting because they fell in love with lifting. That, to me, is my favorite thing. And I'll give you just a quick final story because I
Sure.
think it's a great slash hilarious story. But when I was still living in Montreal, at one point I started training a French horn player who was part of the Montreal Symphonic Orchestra.
Okay.
Okay, so like a big time, high level French horn player, musician. And he comes to me, he's like, Steph, I just want to be healthy, and I watch you train people. Because at that time, at the gym I was at, it was a big commercial gym. We were 35 trainers, and he looked at me for a while training my people. He's like, you seem serious. I want to hire you, but I'm just doing this for health purposes. So the guy was 170 pounds. So what is it in kilos?
Like 80 kilos, something?
80 kilo-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And his body fat was 17% body fat.
Okay.
And I started training him, but seriously. And, and I'm not kidding, 18 months later, he was 195 pounds, so 90 kilos. And he was 6.8% body fat. And he was jacked. Like, he looked like a little mini bodybuilder. He was so freaking jacked, abs and veins and pecs. But at one point, it's like, Steph, man, I struggle to play the French horn. Like, I'm too big. I don't have enough breath. So I'm like, holy shit. So we needed to reduce the training. He did more cardio. Yeah. But the reason is, man, he was squatting at the end. He was squatting almost 200 kilos.
200 kilos?
French horn player. Yeah.
Wow.
His 1 RM squat was close to 200 kilos.
Fuck. That's like 450
400
pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, he was at 435 pounds.
Jesus.
So I'm like, yeah, okay. To play the French horn, I understand that maybe he didn't need to push that much.
But it worked. So and only 18 months. That's not a lot. That's really, really quick. That's like, no, that's not normal, huh?
Yeah, he was younger. He was 27 at the time, so he was at his peak. He was following everything I did. He never missed a session. But it just shows you. So that's my favorite thing. When you get some Gen Pop who just wants help, but then they fall in love with the process.
Yes, and they love to work out, and then even if they don't keep coaching, that they will keep doing that, and that makes sure that's where you do it, like from all the passion. Okay. Stephane, thank you very much for your time and energy and inspiration and stories for this episode. One last thing, if people want to follow you, Kilo, or want to know more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so our website is trainkilo.com, and you can find us on Instagram at Kilo Education, and you can find me at Stephane.Cazeault on Instagram as well.
Thank you very much for the time and effort. I will put everything in the description below, and then if people are interested, just start following Kilo and Stephane. You won't regret it. So thank you very much, Stephane.
Perfect, thank you, Dylan.
De Voormens podcast staat open voor samenwerking met gelijkgestemde merken en organisaties. Heb je interesse in sponsoring of partnership? Contacteer ons via Instagram of via e-mail en dan reiken wij uit naar jullie. En hopelijk tot binnenkort.